Experience the I Am Melanin Magic difference by going to our website www.IamMelaninMagic.com and purchasing your products today. I am Melanin Magic, and so are you.
Welcome to Tunisia's Locs, Beauty Tips, and Potpourri, the channel where we get it all in. You can also learn more about the I Am Melanin Magic brand. Thank you for stopping by.
Jumbled that one up, but I'm back. Okay, so the first thing I want to get into really quickly is conventional wisdom and traditional beliefs around what could be the issue. It's not that your hormones, your genomes, your DNA, your hereditary traits, and all of those things, diet, hormone therapy replacement, whatever we're going to call it, and those things, can't be issues. Diet, drinking enough water, they are very legitimate, especially the diet and the drinking of the water. But my problem is that when you sit down in that chair and someone's been doing your hair for all this time and that's the best that they can come up with, trust me, when it happens to you, you're going to feel pretty miffed. That is not the only thing. And oftentimes for those of us that came into this with healthy hair, that came into this coming from a inheritance where we didn't have women in our hair who experienced balding and thinning, that's not going to be your issue. And that should not be something that you default to, because if you default to that, it's going to keep you from looking at what could be the real issue or what could be also contributing issues. And that's what I want to talk about. The wear and tear of this style that, if not mitigated, can create problems for you down the road. So the second thing I want to talk about is when your locks are too heavy. Okay, as your locks get longer, there's more weight on the lock. All right, so you may find yourself changing some of your hair care patterns to try to mitigate that. As the length of the hair gets longer, it pulls on the roots. All right, now this happens to the best of us. Certain locks, because we're dealing with individual locks and it's like having 500-600 kids in your hair. They all respond differently. So it's important to look at your locks and to periodically go through and see which ones seem heavy or see which ones seem to be adding more weight than, say, the others. And there can be a lot of reasons for that. But I'll give you an example. Because early in my journey, I went through and I began to thin some of my locks out because I was always picking out things. I didn't like the bulging, and if this one was too fat, I went in, I opened it up, which resulted in the thinning of the locks. Some of my locks are thinner down at the bottom, so they're a lot lighter. Okay, it also corresponds with the section of my head and what the original density was in that particular area. So for example, here on the sides where my locks were smaller and where I wanted all of my locks to be this size, which is extremely thin, the lock is lighter. All right, but in areas that are up here at the very back, my locks are heavier. All right, and so sometimes the lock is even thicker down towards the bottom, and there's a need to address that by literally thinning the lock out. And I know that you may find people who may be against this, but what I'm telling you is that longer in your journey, these are things you want to think about. No, you're not doing this in the first year, the second year, maybe the third or even the fourth year. It depends on your own particular hair experience, but it is something that is worth taking a look at, all right? Because the dead hair accumulates in the lock, in addition to the fact that it's growing longer, and so naturally you're going to have more weight on one end than the other end. It's like by age 50, 51, like me and like a lot of you guys, we're facing less time than what's behind us, right? We're facing less time ahead more than likely than what's behind us. So this is just a reality, okay? The third thing is that your locks could have been created too small from the very beginning. All right, or you could have separated your locks like what I did. My loctician who installed my locks, who is the same sister who continues to do them, she did my locks according to protocol. I, though, however, with the Sisterlocks plan for your grid, they're usually 3 different size locks, okay? And so in one area you have a smaller lock, in another area it's a little bit bigger. I didn't really like that. I wanted my locks to be thinner in certain areas, so there were sections of locks in the top that I had my loctician to, on my request, to modify and separate, which made the lock thinner. All right, that was fine with me. I was advised of the disadvantages of doing that and how it would affect my grid and so forth and so on. I didn't care about that. I wanted my locks to look a certain way, and I certainly didn't want the big ones in the front of my head. And I was very particular, as I am now, about this hairline area and the way I wanted things to look. I'm a Virgo, y'all. Those of you who are Virgos, y'all can relate to this, right? So that was something I was very serious about. So in doing that, there are risks that come along with that, which is why I have to pay careful attention to the front and to areas where my locks are very thin, okay, as a result of separating them. But if you get your install and your loctician is trying to meet your request for a certain number of locks, and she makes some unilateral decisions to give you more locks, which means you're going to have less support in terms of the grid and the root support, the base, then you run the risk down the line, not right away, more than likely, but down the line with the repeated trauma of the retightenings and just the way the hair will matriculate throughout this entire journey, you're going to run the risk of experiencing thinning in some of those areas first. Okay, if it happens to be across your whole head, then you're going to run that risk. And so that's why you will see locticians marrying locks, or you'll see you may find that you're in a position to want to combine or marry locks. Now, this video is talking about some of the reasons. I'm going to have a second video in about maybe a week that's going to talk about 20 or so solutions or things you can do to intervene on your own behalf to slow down or stop this process. The idea is that we want to slow down what might, in a vast majority of cases, be an inevitability. That's what I want you to understand and get. We want to slow it down. We want to try to introduce variables that can help mitigate these challenges. While we may not be able to totally eliminate them, there are some options that you have, and that's what you need to start thinking about. And this doesn't It doesn't matter if you're in your first year of Sisterlocks or if you're in year 14 or 15, in the sense that you can relate. But typically, if you're that far down the path, there may be more escalation or escalatory strategies that you're going to have to employ, or that you're going to have to implement or execute in order to delay some of this, or to try to keep what you do have. Because by that time, a lot more hair loss and thinning is systemic. And again, this is all the while still sitting in the chair of your loctician. All right, someone who's supposed to care for your hair and make you aware of some of the challenges without dismissing it as being something that is, conventional wisdom, that you're going to lose your hair, you're going to get to be a certain age, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Listen, both my grandmothers on both sides and my mother right now still have a head full of hair. None of them experienced any thinning whatsoever. And both of my grandmothers were in their 80s. So I don't want to hear that, because that's not an inevitable eventuality for every single woman. All right. The next thing is that number 4, the ends are too thick going through the root. Now, I hope to find a few locks in here that I have issues with because they're a little bit thicker, and one day demo me taking the lock out and thinning it out. Again, your Sisterlocks Mafia people are not going to recommend you do that. But those will be the same people who 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now start looking for and scrambling for solutions to some of the very problems that a lot of you on this channel complain about. So you're not looking for validation in making these choices. You're taking your fate into your hands and mastering what your problem is by taking assertive action on your own behalf. In other words, as you hear me say, you're being an active participant in your own rescue. Okay, so the next thing is, so when those ends get too thick, y'all, and you notice it because it's not only the thick end, it's the tool that's bigger than the root bed if you have small locks, and you're supposed to pull the end of that tool through there along with, and it depends on the type of tool you're using, because if you're using the Sisterlocks tool, it may not be as pronounced. Although if the end is fat, you still are dealing with pulling that fat in through there. But if the tool is fat as well, and some of these tools out here, I'm not going to mention names, but you know some of the tools that have wider openings, which is why it's important that it's made of maybe metal or something that can slide through, and that your hair has some kind of oil or something to coat the hair prior to doing these retightenings can be important in some of those cases. All right, so those are some things that you have to be aware of. Some people's hair grows, and as the lock continues to mature, the bottom gets thick, and it can be quite a bit thicker in proportion to the root. So that's important. The next thing, too frequent of retightenings. You hear me talk about this all the time. Too frequent and too infrequent. I have a lady here on the channel, a few of you who've talked about 4-week retightenings. I have a lady who mentioned her loctician was kind of sounding off on me because I made reference to something about a 4-week retightening. I'm going to stand by that. Anyone who recommends that you get 4-week retightenings on a regular basis, beyond, say, the first few retightenings when they're trying to manage your hair and it's slipping, in which case, even if it's slipping, only certain locks need to be retightened at that frequency, more than likely not the whole head. Anybody who's recommending that either has not been in this journey long enough, is not wearing locks themselves, cannot likely show someone who's been getting 4-week retightenings beyond a few years, who still has a head full of healthy hair, or also I feel on some level it can be professionally negligent. Now, if you're getting retightenings every 4 weeks and they're very gentle and they're very tender, sometimes you can't determine this if you're not tender-headed. Sometimes you can't feel the tension that's being used on each rotation. So that calls into question still that frequent a retightening cycle can be detrimental to your hair. And I feel like it's bordering on professional negligence. Because when your hair starts to shed, as it inevitably will, and starts to thin, what is that person going to say to you? Okay? So you need to consider that. If someone's telling you that, you need to find somebody else to go to. All right? And if you're one of those people out there that believe that that is okay, and you happen to be a consultant, I'd love to have a dialogue with you so that perhaps you can enlighten me. Because in terms of chemical relaxers, in terms of a lot of things that we do to our hair, we do them at least 6 to 8 weeks, even a relaxer retouch. And we can't compare. I'm not trying to put chemicals on the same level as a retightening, but they both are traumatic experiences for the hair, and that's what we have to recognize. So it goes without saying, 4 weeks just doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not willing to take that risk. The next thing, as I mentioned in that same delineated item, is you could be waiting too long. Now, what's too long, what's too frequent, that depends on you. Up until more recently, I've been on about a 10 or an 11-week schedule for the majority of maybe 8 to 10 years of getting my locks. It has not harmed me at all. Right now, currently, I'm moving more between 8 and 9 weeks. Okay, probably more like 8 to 9 on the regular. I'm trying different things with my hair to see what the results will produce, because I realize as we continue in this journey, we have to try different things. Our hair needs are different. Our hair growth patterns are different. A lot of things change, which is why you have to be aware of what's going on with your hair. Okay, the next thing is bad reties / a bad loctician. Now, that bad loctician might be you. You might be doing your own retightenings. Bad reties have to do with the quality of the retightening. How gentle is it? How rough is it? How rushed is it? What tool is being used? Are the rotations too many? Are they too tight to the scalp? Is the amount of tension that's being applied too much? These are things that you have to consider. Are you leaving out of there with a headache or an aggravated scalp? Too many times of that is going to result in hair loss, scarring, and serious potential issues. Is something that you have to think about. Number 7 is something that I'm in the process of researching, and that's having perhaps having been chosen for the wrong pattern, or having an inappropriate pattern, or a less ideal pattern, or maybe needing to change your pattern depending on where you are in your journey. Now, I have a reverse 4 pattern because of as you know, they make these choices depending upon your hair type. And my locks are technically thin. Now, it took my hair about 5 years to mature and the locks to tighten and drop. They didn't always look like this. Even though my hair may look very thick to you, it used to be like this because they had not tightened up, and my hair would always absorb a lot of water and it would just poof out. And I was doing the braid outs, or the banding and braiding for a long time, and occasionally now I will still do that. But because of that, there may be a time where I will want to go to a 3 pattern. Whatever the hell that is. To me, it's just taking the clock and dividing it into 3. Instead of the 12-9-6-3, then maybe it's going to be the 12-8-4 for me. Maybe that's something I want to consider to give more expansion and to put less tension on the hair. And I do think it's something I'm going to start to try. You already know that I do with the front part of my hair, and so I'm probably, this next time, I forgot to do it this time, I get a retightening soon, and so I'm going through retightening my locks now, because you know I always do the front. But I'm going to consider the next time I put my hands in my hair, I'm going to shift to a reverse 3. I don't even know if they have a reverse 3. They don't. I got one, because that's what I'm going to shift to. I'm not going to move out of the reverse, all right, yet, but I'm going to put it at a 3 point, and we're going to see how that goes, all right? The next thing I want to talk about is dry, brittle hair or scalp issues. If you have dandruff, if you have flaking, those things attack your follicles. They put your follicles in a bad situation. They weaken them, and if you don't do something to give your hair strength, if you don't pour into your hair the same way you would change your diet if you knew that you were pre-diabetic, or the same way if you had clogged arteries, you wouldn't sit up and eat fried chicken and fish every weekend, okay? You have to give your hair what is being taken from it, either by the elements and the environment or some type of stress that you're putting on your hair. This is where my problem comes in with people who say they don't need to put some kind of spray, some type of oil, some type of healthy product in their hair to reconstitute the strength of their hair, to build antioxidant capacity, to help your hair regenerate and create cell renewal, or help to restore, to bring not only shine and luster, but some level of elasticity to your hair, and to help your hair retain moisture. Okay, that's the problem that I have with people who think, and like I say, I'm talking about my experience, and I'm also talking about people who are not willing to consider that the hair may need something else, or that while that may work for you early in your journey, as you go through the journey and the hair continues to be victimized by recurring trauma to the hair because of the retightenings and everything else, the length of it and all this old other stuff, that you don't have to change your position and begin to realize that as it's being depleted of its strength, that there's not something that you need to do. Okay, and that's why I began to share this. I've been using this, or I made this, started using this around my 2nd year, and I decided to share it with you all because you guys continue to request it. So I finally decided to share it, and if you're interested in this, you can get it from the I Am Melanin Magic website. And you should, this is probably one of the old sprayers. I'm not happy with the way this is spraying because it should be a little bit more of a mist, all right? And I don't know what's going on with this particular sprayer because this is a new sprayer. I did change the sprayer, but ideally you want, if it's spraying like that, it's not the end of the world if you have really dry hair, but it'd be better if you would spray it and massage it in, okay? You want it to have more of a mist, and you want to spread it through your hair, but this is going to help your hair grow. For many of you, you've used this and been able to have your hair regrow in areas where it was not growing, or you had lost hair for years. So this works for a lot of you. That was not the intention. That is an unintended consequence. I knew that it will help protect your hair and help your hair to grow, but I did not know that this product was really going to help fill in areas where you were having a lot of difficulty. Some of you are experiencing that from this product. Others of you are using the Magical Hair Growth Serum, and it's bringing in those little stray hairs. Sometimes you need those stray hairs to cover that scalpy look, and that can work for some of you. Some of you will continue to experience increased growth if you don't stress the hair as it begins to start to regrow. But you can get those products on IamMelaninMagic.com, all right? The other thing I wanted to talk about is hair that's weak due to a lack of supplementation. You have to put something in your hair, okay? You have to. Whether it's essential, I mean, even if you're using a water spray, the chemicals that are in our common drinking water are simply not, they don't pass muster us drinking it, let alone using it on our hair. We've got the chlorine, the fluoride, all of the things that strip our hair of their natural integrity and the health. So you have to be careful. Sometimes water is not enough. We say that we use water to moisturize our hair, but I got to tell you, if your water is not alkaline and it ain't getting through the cell membrane, it ain't getting through when you're putting it on your hair either at the level that it needs to actually moisturize your hair. A healthy molecule of water has to have a hexagonal structure in order to be able to penetrate the cell membrane and do what it needs to do. That's why I travel to Flovilla to get high quality drinking water, and will continue to do that for the length of time that I can. Although I used to use the Jupiter Athena machine and I would alkalinize my own water, I stopped doing that and I go there to get the water because it actually hydrates. It hydrates better than bottled water. Most of the bottled water, when you test it, and you can get those little pH drops, you test most of the bottled water that's out here in the marketplace, like Fuji water, Dasani, and all of that, and you're going to see that a majority of it is very acidic. That's not what you want for your hair, unless you're trying to kill fungus. Unless you're dealing with, you may want some acidic water on your hair from a Kangen water machine or an Athena water alkalinizer machine. If you are dealing with fungus and hair scalp issues, acne and so forth, yeah, you might want to spray that stuff on you, because spray it on your hair or your skin, because it will help. But it depends on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. The next thing is, so you have to put in your hair what you're taking out. You need vitamin supplementation. You need minerals. You need antioxidants. You need all these things that I talked about. You need essential oils, okay? Things that I talked about previously. Rough washes, number 10. Rough washes. Being too rough when you wash your hair, okay? Wringing it, scrubbing the scalp, all of that type stuff. Number 11, failure to maintain your locks and detangle them in between visits to your loctician. You have to do that. You can't just sit in the chair every 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks and not do your hair, and then go and then let her shampoo it, and then it's still crazy, and then let her detangle it. If I'm having thinning with my locks, I'm getting ready to take over the shampooing of my locks. That's my advice to you as another step that you need to take, is take over the shampooing of your own locks. All right, because it's just another opportunity where you can be tender during a time where your hair is already tangled. Next, refusal to admit that you're experiencing lock thinning or fall, or allowing your loctician to convince you otherwise. A lot of times you know when it's happening, and then you let the person that's standing over your head, that has that 360-degree view, and that's had you in that chair for months and months and months and hadn't said anything to you. And I'm not talking about all locticians, but I am calling to the carpet those ones who I feel have some level of negligence, all right? And for those of you who feel I'm being harsh, let it happen to you, and you may be more sensitive to what I'm saying and to those folks out there in our community who have experienced this. But you're feeling something intuitively or otherwise, or you're seeing something, and that person is not really validating your concerns, okay? And you're not feeling right about it, okay? If it doesn't fit, you must acquit, right? The next thing is failing to take immediate drastic action once you have a reason to be concerned. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Once you start to sense that something is thinning, you got to get on it, y'all. You got to get on it. And trust me, when you start to sense that it's thinning, it's going to put you in a state of alarm, because you can rest assured that the thinning will worsen and it will spread to other areas if you don't do something about it. Next is thinking the problem just going to go away. It's not going to just go away. It's not. And the issue is, even if you're using this is continuing to have the hair grow. But if you're continuing to put stress on the hair long term, you're still going to have issues. This is going to build capacity and give you strength and make your hair more resilient to hair color, to all the other things that you may be doing, but you have a responsibility to hop on this early and to intervene if you start to notice issues, okay? Excessive styling, pulling the hair back, putting cornrows in it, doing updos. You have to watch that. I love curls. I don't do them as often as I'd like because of that. I think the braid outs will probably put the least amount of stress on our hair to some degree, but I love the ringlets. And I'm probably going to curl up after I get my retightening this weekend. I want some curls. But am I going to be doing it every day? No. Am I going to be taking my locks and actually getting them braided when I already have braids? No, I'm not going to be doing that. The next thing on the list is coloring. Okay, coloring is going to, just like it always did before you even got your Sisterlocks, it's going to result in excessive drying and some degree of breakage and brittleness. You have to mitigate that. You're going to be doing color, you need to strengthen your hair before you do the color. You need to be careful about the color you choose. I am somebody that recommends the over-the-counter color. The black brands, unfortunately, or those that pose as black brands, have always been harsher on my hair. I don't use the Dark and Lovely. I don't use the Soft and Beautiful. Those things would break my hair off before I even started my lock journey. I used Vidal Sassoon for years. I used Revlon. I preferred Vidal Sassoon over Revlon. I felt it was less harsh on my hair. All right, but I noticed my hair did get drier and it didn't feel as good. It's finally back to feeling the way it did in the beginning. Okay, it feels good. It feels soft. It feels light. It took me about 2.5 years to get to that point. And I'm considering henna, but I'm going to do, I told you I'm bringing Priscilla on here. I did a long interview with her. She's been using henna for 10 plus years. So stick around for that video. But I'm not just going to, I'm going to try it out in a particular area of my head first, and I'm going to test it out for some months before I put it over my whole head. And in any way, I'm not going to put it up here. I'm going to put it on my ends so that I can have my ends permanently some sort of red color. All right, y'all know I love the fall leaves, okay? And I need that burgundy back. The burgundy is my life. All right, so coloring you have to be careful with. You have to take precautions. You have to watch which chemicals are being put in your hair. And just because you're dealing with a master cosmetologist doesn't mean that you can't lose hair. Who was it that contacted me recently? Had a lady she's been working with for many years. And she's a master colorist as well. And her locks still fell out. So my advice to you is to stay away from bleaching and stay away from lightening your hair beyond a certain number. Okay, that's something you got to think about. Synthetic products, watch out for them. The parabens and sulfates, they damage your hair. Okay, they damage the roots, the follicles. Examining if whether or not the tool you're using it is ideal for your hair. There are a lot of different Sisterlocks tools. I have a video that showcases 11 of them. You can search it on the channel, Sisterlocks tools, and Tunisia Ali, or go within the channel and just click on search and then put that in, and you can decide if there is a tool that may work better for you. Every tool is not ideal for every person, and every person does not use every tool properly. All right, next is a dirty scalp. A dirty scalp contributes to the inability of your hair to absorb, or your follicles to get the nutrition and to absorb what needs to be absorbed. It blocks and can eventually destroy your follicles. Okay, next thing is bouncing around between locticians. Can be a big problem unless it's a necessity and you know that you found someone that you can trust. You may have some things that you're dissatisfied with, like, for example, in this emerging market that we're dealing with Sisterlocks and the plethora of complaints that some of you all are sharing on the channel with regard to locticians, if I had to deal with somebody being 30 minutes late or canceling and needing to reschedule an appointment with me every now and then, but they did excellent reties, it didn't hurt my hair, and my hair was progressing well, and they always gave me feedback every time I sat in the chair, I might put up with some of that stuff. Because to go to someone who's going to book you on time, who's going to get you in and out so you can get to your late night date, who's going to dot every I and cross every T with regard to credibility and professionalism, but mess up your reties or give you a bad retie without even knowing that they're doing it, because they don't realize that there is such a thing as a bad retie, and it's not just because they mess your grit up, then that's something you don't want to think about. Very serious. So try not to be bouncing back and forth. Try to do your due diligence. If you find yourself bouncing back and forth, it might be time for you to take over your own retightenings. Number 21, failing to inspect what you expect and catching problems early. You got to catch the problem early. It doesn't matter what we're doing in life and what our profession is, whether you're in the classroom or you're diagnosing a learning disability, or you're in the healing profession and you're looking at the symptoms, trying to come up with the etymology of a particular difficulty that a client is experiencing. Whatever it is, you have to be attuned to the needs of your hair, and you have to be on top of observing critically what is going on with your hair and catching these things early and beginning to work with them. I don't know if you all remember, a long time ago, I had a very thin lock up here at the front. And it was because I had taken a little peak that I had here and made a lock out of it. And Efraj wanted to combine it because it was super thin. And I asked her to give me a few or several weeks or a few retightenings to try to work on that little lock and thicken it up, so that she didn't have to retighten it. And I worked on it and thickened it up, and it's fine now. But here's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you got to notice when something is happening, you got to do something about it. And you have to isolate that lock, or you have to know where your problem locks are, and you have to tend to them. You have to love on them, and then you have to, at critical intervals, pay attention to what's going on with that particular lock, especially if it's an area in a certain area of your head, or if it's something that is visible and everything else around it is doing okay, or that particular lock is thinner in a particular area of your hair that always used to be thin. Whatever it is, you got to be paying attention to what's going on. And then finally, my last one is listening to your loctician instead of your intuition. That's going to be your biggest mistake. Hell, that's going to be your biggest mistake during your install. Is your intuition is telling you when you take that bathroom break, which I always recommend when you're getting your hair installed, to take a few bathroom breaks. Take a mirror, look in the back, pay attention to what's going on with your hair. Look, y'all, you have to inspect what you expect, right? You have to have things in place that serve as protection mechanisms to ensure that you're getting the value for your investment. And it's not always being antagonistic towards your loctician. You could be dealing with a newer loctician who just simply would like your feedback. This is not meant to pit you against your loctician, because it's not what you're saying to your loctician, it's how you're presenting the information. It's the rapport that you develop with that person. And you still want to know if you're dealing with someone who, when you bring something to their attention, they don't respond adequately, or they have an attitude. That's not going to be the person that's going to be an ideal loctician for you for the long haul anyway. But you have to trust your intuition rather than your loctician. There are many times in your journey where something was bothering you, and you know it, and you're sitting in the chair and you kind of bring it up. Maybe you skirt the issue. Maybe you feel kind of passive, but you go home feeling miffed because you didn't really say what you needed to say, or you were walking around on eggshells because you have a heavy-handed loctician. And when I say heavy-handed, I'm talking about someone who has a strong energy, and they can be very aggressive and very abrasive in the way that they respond, and you didn't feel like dealing with that, and you knew you needed that loctician, so you walked around on eggshells. But let's say, for example, when you're getting your install and you paid for 12 inches and the person is leaving 3 out at the bottom, but they're charging you for 12. And you feel some kind of way about it, and you go in the bathroom, you realize all your ends are being left out, and you're a quarter of the way through your hair, and you know that's not right, but you sit in that chair and you let them continue doing your other locks that way without saying something about it. Okay, so defer to your intuition in 8 out of 10 of your concerns over your loctician when it's something that's important and you have a feeling about it and you have some knowledge about it, and it's not related to what they may be doing as the professional, because clearly they are skilled at what they do and they have been trained. But there's a continuum of skill levels. And if you're dealing with a particular loctician who wasn't really doing hair prior to going to a Sisterlocks class, and she's starting to do locks, and she also doesn't have locks, which can be an added benefit, although it's not a prerequisite, then you're dealing with someone who's just a mechanical servicer, and they're just going through and doing the retightenings. They're not going to be able to help you with much else beyond that. And with this style, you need a lot more help beyond that. You need someone to take a responsibility for the overall health of your hair. I hope that this video has assisted you. Again, if you hadn't purchased my book, Manifesting Your Masterpiece, make sure you go online and get that. If you are looking for the website, it's going to be in the description. If you are willing to come onto the channel via Zoom in a short 10 or 15 minute interview and share some of your feedback about your journey, make sure you text me at 678-438-6442. If you want to just submit a 2 or 3 minute video talking about some aspect of the journey or giving a testimonial, say for example, for how these products are helping your hair grow or some other aspect, then shoot that to me. Send it to my WhatsApp, 678-438-6442, or upload it as a Google Drive file so that I can download it with quality. For some of you who are a little bit camera shy, an interview that you do with me does not have to show your face if that's not what you're interested in. We can always blur your face out, or we can make it a video that is simply by audio, and we could submit pictures that you may want to share. But I love you guys. I appreciate you. Please continue to come back to the channel, and I will continue to try to be out here for us in this experience, trying to bring you quality information and things that I've learned along the path. Thank you so much. And I just want to reiterate that I am not a Sisterlocks consultant. I'm not a loctician. I do not specialize in hair, but I have specialized in doing my own hair since the 1st grade, and I come from a family of beauticians. So hair has always been something that has been of interest to me, and I have done just about everything to my hair that one can think of over my lifetime. Okay, so if you are interested in healing or a spiritual reading or intuitive soul reading, a tarot reading, make sure you also contact me. I also have Butterfly Transformations as my other channel, where we deal with how to up-level your life from a spiritual perspective. So you can see me over there as well. I love you guys, and I appreciate all that you are to me, and I appreciate the beauty and your shine, everything that you bring to the channel. Again, for those of you who are always out there in the comments, I appreciate your loyalty to the cause. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
If you are not using I Am Melanin Magic hair oil, then what are you using?
Hey guys, so I started using this oil called I Am Melanin Magic since February of this year, and check out the new growth. Like, it's insane. Not only did it help with my new growth, but it smells amazing too.
See the dramatic improvements Denisha has made after not having hair around her edges for 3 years. Tanya's hair had been like this for almost 20 years, and while getting injections. Her doctor said it was scarred and would never grow back. After 4 weeks of using I Am Melanin Magic, this is what she looked like. I Am Melanin Magic did this to Danette's hair after a short time.
Hi, I'm the creator of the I Am Melanin Magic hair and skincare brand. My vision has always been to develop a line of products that meets the unique needs of melanated people. The I Am Melanin Magic hair oil is our premier product. It is the leading high-end supplement for your mane.
It reduces breakage, promotes growth, and can be used on all hair types and looks, from straightened hair and microlocks to wigs and protective styles.
It's antifungal, antibacterial, and anti-funk, so you know you're protected.
It softens and conditions your hair, and it's anti-frizz too.
This really is all you need. It's rich with antioxidants, loaded with growth-promoting ingredients. Look at the growth of my hair. The proof is in the product. Need I say more? Don't delay. Purchase yours today.
I Am Melanin Magic, and so are you.